This is going to be a complicated video, so bear with me. LB7 of FGO is generally one of the best stories I have read, alongside LB6. An intriguing lore, an incredible cast of characters, and most of all, an incredible amount of amazing antagonists. From Camazotz to David, to Tezcalipoca, and even Iskali. One antagonist though I would put above the others, one that is unlike anything you really see in fiction. And while I like David a lot and probably like him more later on, not everything about him is revealed in LB7. Despite what all my outros in the past might suggest, I'm not going to make a video on him yet. So that leaves ORT, the one radiant thing, on par with the other greats of Fate, like Goetia, Krishtaria, and Oberon. Now, I'm sure that everyone knows about just how powerful ORT is, or at least heard about it, but in this video I want to go over what makes it such an awe-inspiring antagonist, and what makes it stand out compared to other monster antagonists. To do that though, I'm going to have to go through a lot of setup, starting from what a Lost Vault even is, to what ORT is. This is all pretty complicated, so I'm going to make it all very simple and digestible. In FGO we play as Ritsuka Fujimaru, the one and only master of Chaldea. Chaldea is an organization that exists, at least seemingly, to keep humanity safe and to continually prove its existence. This is done by correcting one of two problems, either by mending a singularity or by destroying a Lost Vault. Part 1 of Fate Go is mostly about singularities, and Part 2 is mostly about Lost Vaults. Now, what do these two terms mean? A singularity is a point in time which has been tampered with through an outside source. Basically, a singularity is a fanfiction imprinted onto history and has to be dealt with before it contaminates the main timeline. Lost Vaults, though, are what-ifs. You can think of them as continuations of singularities, a branch that is grown from the main timeline. What if Arjuna assimilated most of the Indian pantheon for the sake of a better world? What if Shinji Hong found the secret to immortality? Things of that nature. And as branching paths, they grow in the same rate as proper human history. What I mean by that is that if Shinji Hong became immortal in 210 BC, Chaldea visits the Lost Vault in 2019 of that Lost Vault, when Shinji Hong is comfortably ruling the world. Which is 2,200 years later, and all Lost Vaults are kept alive by their Tree of Emptiness, also known as Fantasy Trees. Here's the important note: all Lost Vaults are dead ends. Proper human history is the main timeline because it's the timeline that humanity doesn't stagnate in, it keeps growing. Lost Vaults are histories that, in whatever way, have either lost their human tenacity and will, or are unable to ascend as a species. By the time Chaldea reaches LB7, they have taken down a few dozen threats. Not simple threats either, world-ending evils. From the mother of humanity Tiamat, to the progenitor of singularities Goetia, to the ultimate divinity Zeus, and even the judge sent by Avalon, Kernonos. It's safe to say that by LB7, Ritsuka is a veteran, and possibly the most experienced master Earth has seen. So, if you want to talk about monsters, he would be the one to classify them. Nasuverse is a tricky universe though. Let's leave all of what I just said to the side for now and go over the other side of Nasuverse worldbuilding. The planets in Fate are not just big rocks, they're alive in an alien sort of way. They have wills, their own unique dimensions and physical laws, and every planet has the strongest creature, not guardian or defender or even really personification, just the strongest. If you want to get more specific though, it's not every planet but every celestial body, even the moon. These strongest beings are called multiple things. They're called ultimate ones, Aristotles, and types. All mean the same thing. For the sake of convenience, let's just call them types. These types are, well, different in every sense of the word. They're not human, they don't think like humans, they're not built like humans, or any creature really. Concepts such as thought and emotion don't come naturally to these monsters, and even if they do, those thoughts and emotions would be incomprehensible to a human mind. They are basically like machines, but more eldritch. They all have various functions and act on some sort of code. While Notes is really old and knowing Nasu isn't a perfectly trustworthy source anymore, it's the best we have on the ultimate ones. In it, the types all act to destroy all life on Earth because of Earth's own plea. In short, Earth is dying and it doesn't like the fact that the Sapiens might just outlive it and live on its corpse. So, it signals the ultimate ones of other planets to come in and kill all life on Earth. The types also don't seem to have a concept of death. I will go into this more later, but just keep that in mind. And again, Notes is a vague story, so we can't go into the specifics. Moving on from Notes, in proper human history, the types will all get called for the Promised Day, basically Judgment Day, eventually. But that's a problem for thousands of years down the line. By now, you have probably guessed that ORT is an ultimate one. So you might be asking, the type of which planet? Saturn? Jupiter? Neptune? Well, it isn't from any planets. Our solar system was birthed when a few stars came together and exploded, throwing all kinds of materials and elements throughout space. Slowly, the sun was formed in the middle of that explosion, and with its gravitational pull, it constructed our solar system. The planets that we know now are the results of that very same cosmic explosion. We got Mercury, Venus, Earth, etc., all the way to Neptune. Some of the dust and debris that was either too small or flew too far formed a sort of waste/cloud around our solar system. That cloud is called the Oort Cloud. It is speculated that it even houses a ninth planet. Due to the strange movement of some of the rocks in the Oort Cloud, it is theorized that there is another planet with strong gravitational pull circling the sun. Or maybe a miniature black hole, no one can tell. The Oort Cloud is so far from the sun that it is impossible to get a good view of it due to the darkness. Why am I saying this? Because just like how we know frighteningly little about the Oort Cloud, we know very little facts about ORT. And in the world of fate, ORT comes from this very same Oort Cloud as its ultimate one. Either that or a specific celestial body inside it. But as far as it's been told, ORT is type Oort Cloud. Here's the thing. Would this debris that is blanketing our solar system be considered a part of it? You wouldn't think of it, and the types don't think that either. At least, it's not one of the ultimate ones that is supposed to get called for the Promised Day. Even so, somehow, ORT received the Promised Day signal 5,000 years early and crash-landed on Earth before the Common Era. It wasn't exactly invited, and in proper human history, it is staying in South America, in a place where no one will go. It's not aggressive if you don't approach it, and doesn't communicate in any way. It's just an entity that lives on Earth now, waiting. The mages of Earth also know about its existence. At one point, a group of massively powerful mages went to slay it. All but one was never seen again, and the one that fled turned into living crystal and died after returning, and saying this: "The creature must still not be touched. No life on the planet is up to the task as of now. Wait for the next geological period. We'll entrust hope to the next evolved life that will come after our extinction." From that point on, anyone that visited the creature disappeared. It's to the point that high-class mage families scare their children into behaving by telling them stories of ORT. Most lesser families, though, treated stories as mere rumors and fairy tales. Now, that is the proper human history version of ORT. Let's go back a bit and fuse these two world-building elements we went over into one, and talk about the ORT of Nahui Mictlan of Lost Build 7. Due to their nature, all Lost Builds have a different starting point. This means that some lost builds can only be a few hundred years old, while others might be a few thousand. Lost Build 5 and 6, for example, both diverged from the proper timeline around 10,000 years ago, which is quite the long time. So, what about Nahui Mictlan? When did the divergence happen here? A few hundred years? A few thousand? Maybe even 20,000? No. The timeline split of LB7 happened approximately 300 million years ago. So, what happened 300 million years ago? In proper human history, we have the big 5 extinction events that eventually led to the lives we have now. 66 million years ago, an asteroid hit the Earth and wiped out the dinosaurs from the face of the planet. That was the 5th extinction event. In LB7 though, that asteroid arrived much earlier, around 300 million years ago. Not clear why, but its trajectory simply changed. The thing is, in Fate Universe, the asteroid that was the cause of the 5th extinction event was actually filled with alien fungi plants things. Some kind of mystical life form that could assimilate and empower other beings, sort of like a parasitic blessing. And in proper human history, those alien fungi eventually became the Aztec gods who lived by possessing other people/creatures. I will go into more detail about the inner workings of what all this means once I make the Deinos video, but just know that the extinction asteroid had powerful alien life forms on it that blessed things. In proper human history, they blessed and nurtured the indigenous people of America and the habitat they lived in. It's why the Amazon rainforest is so overgrown. In LB7 though, things happened differently. Back 300 million years ago, the Earth still housed the supercontinent of Pangaea, and the alien fungi, which I will call Mala from now on, prevented the fracture of Pangaea and started nurturing it just as they did in proper human history with America. This changed the ecosystem of Earth greatly and completely prevented the 3rd and 4th extinction events. And instead of waiting for humans to be born, the Mala decided to bless the dinosaurs that still lived on land. Unlike in proper human history, the Deinos of LB7 did not go extinct as a result of the Mala meteor, possibly because of the geological differences between the two timelines. Either way, for around 234 million years, Earth became a paradise for the dinosaurs. The dinos themselves didn't differ all that much from the dinos we know, at least not yet, because the Mala focused most of its powers on the great landmass that the dinosaurs lived in, and because of how ingrained into the land Mala became after a while, it gained authority over Earth. What that means is that the Mala could affect the trajectory of Earth's evolution, and this was important for one reason. While the asteroid that hit Earth 66 million years ago came much sooner in this lost belt, that doesn't mean that another asteroid didn't crash into the Earth of Nahui Mictlan 66 million years ago. The Mala foresaw this and knew that if this other asteroid landed on Earth, all of its life would be wiped out. So, it built a giant hollow underground inside of the Earth and focused all the planet's resources into making sure this place would always be habitable for the dinosaurs and the kind. And of course, once the meteor did land and cause the 3rd extinction event of LB7, the surface of the Earth became hell itself. And most dinosaurs did die, but the ones that survived were evolved by Mala itself. Basically, they made a new species in Deinos, as in like D-E-I-N-O-S instead of D-I-N-O-S. Smart, intelligent life forms that are wholly collectivists and never lacked anything. The Mala changed their biology and made it so that they only need water and sunlight to survive. And because the underground would not see the light of day, they created a tiny artificial sun inside Mictlan, the hollow underground, that would feed the dinos. Of course, because of all this intervention, the surface of the Earth is still hell 66 million years later. Again, all the energy that the planet would have spent in order to rebuild the Earth was drained into Mictlan so that it could thrive. As for the meteor that crashed, it landed somewhere on the surface. But this meteor wasn't just any plain old space rock. it was a much bigger disaster that would go on to cause the next two extinction events as well. It was ORT. For whatever reason, ORT crash-landed into Earth way earlier than it was supposed to, and did so in a catastrophic manner, which wiped out around 80 to 70% of all life. And after that, it had to spend a very long amount of time on the burning surface of Mictlan, slowly recovering. 60 million years is a long time for an artificial sun to stay floating, and so 6 million years before present day, the sun of Mictlan just went out. It had no more energy, it couldn't be sustained anymore. Because of that, the Deinos were forced into hibernation, and in their absence, humans came to rule Mictlan. Those humans emerged from the lowest stratum, basically floor, of Mictlan, where Mala's influence was the weakest. So, they were not creatures blessed by the almighty Mala. Even so, they made the kingdom of Khan and even explored the higher stratums, building cities wherever they could. The rule of these humans lasted for about 100,000 years, and after that, only one human remained and another sun was made. Why? Because in those 60 million years that ORT was dysfunctional, it was healing itself, little by little, until it managed to get enough power to do what it needed to do again. And once it woke up, it began doing what it does best, devouring. At the time, the Deinos were still in hibernation, so only the humans could fight against ORT, and they put up a good fight. And by good fight, I mean as good a fight as someone can put against a planet eater. Nothing worked, not their technology, not their weapons, nothing. In the end, the people had no choice but to sacrifice all their lives for the sake of their king, Camazotz. Only by creating a monster in Camazotz could they actually combat ORT. So, their entire species died out, and thankfully, Camazotz did manage to combat ORT and rip out its heart, only after losing all but one limb. Due to the various curses and modifications, Camazotz was completely immortal, unable to be killed. Even so, he had no way of actually ending ORT. Let's talk about the lack of ORT's concept of death. Basically, when a biological life form dies, it can never live again. Take humans for example. Once our brain shuts down, that's it. We can't be revived. You can do whatever you want with the brain, experiment on the body all you want, but once all bodily functions stop, you die for good. For whatever reason, there's just no coming back from that. You can replace an arm, a leg, even a heart, but once a body stops working, it just doesn't work again. It can't, it's unable to. In contrast, a machine can die all at once, but it can still come back. This is Tezcalipoca's interpretation of ORT's immortality. As he puts it, what separates machines from humans isn't their artificiality or intelligence, or some vague concept like a soul. It's whether they can come back to life or not. And then we have the types, more specifically ORT. Even if it fully stops functioning, it can still revive as if nothing happened. If it gets a new heart, it can get up. If it gets a new brain after dying, it can move again. Scarily, it can mend its broken parts automatically. Humans also can regenerate, but things like the brain or heart are beyond human ability. The body doesn't heal once it's dead, but ORT's body does, no matter what you do to it. Every cell in its body is capable of performing any of its own functions. The only reason why it even stays dead for so long is because after the battle between it and Camazotz, Mala stole its heart and made a new sun out of it. So, as far as ORT was concerned, it had a beating heart. So, it didn't try to regenerate it, leaving its body with no heart. But if someone decided to become its new temporary heart, it would start moving again towards its previous heart. Not that it needs that. If left alone, its body would have made a new heart anyway. It's just that due to circumstances, someone decides later on to make it happen more quickly. Either way, after Camazotz managed to defeat ORT, the monster fell all the way down to the bottommost stratum of Mictlan. There it devoured the fantasy tree of Mictlan, which proves the Lost World's existence, and took on its functions, which is why Mictlan manages to survive without its fantasy tree, because technically, ORT is that tree. The more times ORT is killed in a specific way, the more it evolves to counter it. ORT is a highly adaptable creature, whatever it is. Basically, whatever it devours, it gains the functions of, even information. So, if it crystallizes and absorbs a star, it gains the properties of that star. If it eats a powerful figure, it can take on the properties of that person. It's a life form that continuously learns and evolves, devours and strengthens, and as far as we know, there is no limit to this. ORT is a being that came from dust and debris, a phenomenon that was born in the unknowable Oort Cloud, and what it lacked there it gains from the rest of the solar system, and one day in the future, even a whole universe. Let's make one thing clear, ORT is not a person, it's not human, and certainly doesn't think like one. It's not a machine either, it's alien, as in it has a structure but one that's incomprehensible, an eldritch abomination that lives solely to grow more and more, in all the ways that a thing can. Sure, due to the nature of its abilities, it can mimic certain traits, but that's all it is, information and mimicry, a fake romance if you will. It doesn't fear, it doesn't acknowledge, it only moves forward in the most profitable manner. The human will, the tenacity that us humans cherish so much, is simply the nature of ORT. Again, this thing is a monster beyond monsters, a nightmare that should be left for whatever species comes after humanity is long gone, because once it starts assimilating the world to itself, it cannot be stopped. Unbeknownst to the Deinos, a whole civilization rose and fell in their slumber, and another large percentage of them died out. That 100,000 years became the fourth extinction event of Nahui Mictlan. The fifth and final extinction event happens because of an individual by the name of David Semvoid. For reasons that I've promised I will explain one day, he wanted to wake ORT up and destroy the world. Up until Chaldea actually gets to Nahui Mictlan, no one knows that he wants to do this, aside from possibly Krishtaria Vodeme, which died in LB5. Ever since Lost World 5, we knew that ORT was going to be an important piece of Lost World 7, or at least an important plot point in the future. And later on, Moriarty tells us directly that ORT is a valuable piece that multiple parties want to make use of. So, most of LB7 is not about even destroying the Lost World per se, but about making sure that no one can make use of ORT. Not David and not the alien god, another antagonist that want to merge with ORT. The thought of fighting ORT doesn't even cross the minds of the Galeans. It's like trying to destroy the sun as an ant, it's just not feasible. This is further proven at around the halfway point of the Lost World. The gang all goes to Mexico City to rescue some of their kidnapped friends, and there they find some of the antagonists of LB7, from Iskali to Tenochtitlan, also known as Tulloch at the time, and even Tezcalipoca. You see, in Fate, one of the powers that Tezcalipoca has is the power to bring in a future catastrophe to the present day. What this means is that if a great disturbance has a possibility of happening in the future, Tezcalipoca can pluck that disturbance and bring it to the present. So, what he does is he, with the power of a command spell from David, uses his authority to summon an awakened ORT from the future. What this means is that 1. ORT's awakening is a possibility, and 2. that he will rise from the bottom stratum to at least the 5th one, where Mexico City is located. For context, there are 9 stratums in Nahui Mictlan, with the bottom one being 9th. Of course, as soon as ORT gets summoned, all of Mexico City gets annihilated. Members of Chaldea die in seconds. The Ocelome, another species native to Mictlan, gets exterminated, and we are shown a glimpse into the genesis of life itself. Only a glimpse though. That power of Tezcalipoca's is mostly just for show. and after a while everything gets reverted back to before he summoned ORT. Still, the fear was implanted. The thought that ORT is unbeatable was imprinted upon the Chaldean's brains. When you kill ORT here, his health bar disappears before getting replaced by 10 more health bars, and right after, he kills your whole party. Now, let's talk about the actual fight itself, shall we? The real one, not the vision. Once the Chaldeans get to the 9th stratum and below, they face a couple challenges. Tenochtitlan, Tezcalipoca, a lot of problems for the most part, but things only really get serious once David comes into the picture. What ORT needed was a heart, the heart of a true warrior, someone who had determination. Otherwise, instead of doing what David wanted, ORT would simply gnaw at the planet before leaving, and that would only work after feeding ORT's body a lot of extra hearts. Near the end, all that was left was that warrior's heart. At first, the plan was to use an individual called Iskali, but things didn't work out. So, they needed another human. At first, Ritska was supposed to be that human, but after the gang killed Tezcalipoca and Ritska didn't react to David's words the way he wanted, David quickly gave up on that idea. Still, there was one more human that could act as ORT's temporary heart, himself. So, he descends into the body of ORT, and after that, ORT finally wakes up. In the fight itself, nothing seems out of the ordinary. It has multiple health bars like other bosses, gets stronger with each depletion, and has unique skills. Every time you kill it though, it uses a skill called blank 20%, up to 80%. It's not clear what the blank is. Either way, you manage to defeat it, bringing down the monster once and for all. Or so it should have been. Nahui Mictlan is split into 3 separate parts as a story. The third part, barring one battle, you only fight ORT, nothing else. A fight that goes on to take a total of 3 hours at least. Let's talk more about this threat to humanity. For one, this ORT is the one that came to Earth 66 million years ahead of the proper human history one. What this means is that it has spent less time devouring. ORT as a creature has one directive: to eat, assimilate, and grow. To devour and intake any and all knowledge. The greatest desire that humanity always has is the desire to learn more, to unravel the unknown and possibly replicate it. That endless desire is ORT's entire existence. Whatever concept that exists, whatever information or matter that the universe has, is something that ORT will crystallize and digest as part of itself. The reason why Camazotz could combat it and win is because 1. Camazotz is the beast of oblivion and immortal. Basically, Camazotz has adopted the concept of oblivion and has become oblivion itself, literally. Maybe I will make a video on Camazotz too at some point. Anyway, oblivion is the one thing that goes against the very nature of ORT. It is the one concept that is poison to it, and the one it will never inherit. And 2, again, LB7 ORT is far less mature than proper human history ORT. It has spent less time in the Oort Cloud devouring worlds. There is even a possibility that Lost ORT is infantile, and that ORT was born around 66 million years ago. Sure, we can take the fact that ORT is level 1 as a sign that it has been extremely weakened, but it could also be a hint to the fact that ORT really hasn't had much experience devouring yet, and landed on Earth around when it was created in whatever way. That though is just a theory. Either way, point is, ORT Nahui Mictlan is still a very immature life form, if it could even be called life. Another thing to note is that due to devouring cosmic rays in the Oort Cloud, it has become cosmic rays as well, ones not filtered through the Earth's atmosphere. So, even being near it is a dangerous endeavor. Whatever fights ORT can only do so for a limited amount of time before getting malformed by the radiation it exudes. And may the Lord help you if you touch such a radioactive monstrosity. It's so bad that the 8th and 9th stratum can only be accessed 5 days a year. In other days, those 2 stratums are entirely uninhabitable due to the radiation. Not only that, just by existing, it can absorb magical energy even from other living creatures, even spirits like servants. And as such an advanced thing, it is highly intelligent in ways we cannot comprehend. If it sees something abnormal, say, a servant's skill, it can unconsciously analyze it, copy it, and multiply that skill's effectiveness. And if some magical energy debuffs ORT, its body can once again analyze the contents of such virus before turning its structure to its own advantage. Another thing it does is it corrupts and terraforms the land around it slowly. It's something that it can choose not to do, but if it's awake, it will just do it. If you play Terraria, it's similar to the corruption and crimson biomes of that game, and everything its crystals terraform, of course, becomes part of ORT. Still, it's not a completely incomprehensible creature. It resembles a spider of some kind, and just like a spider, it webs the space around it with cosmic silk, which can make movement tricky, just like real-life spiders. Lastly, if something powers up, like a servant with a buff, strange microbial lives absorb those positive effects and transfer them to ORT, every now and then. Everything I just went through, all of this, it does not consciously, but by existing. At most, it does them out of habits, and the ORT that the gang fights in the bottom stratum is simply an ORT that is gaining consciousness and starting all those functions. Those functions are basically background computer tasks. So, the defeat that ORT suffers there is just its awakening to actually devour the planet. A loading screen before partaking in a most pleasant meal, starting by actually going after the son of Mictlan, its old heart. Until ORT, Chaldea faced many different threats, many of which were capable of threatening the world. Tiamat was the mother of Babylon that they faced in the 7th Singularity, and in her fight she had a total of around 1,300,000 health. Goetia, which was the main cause of the main 7 singularities, possessed 1,500,000 HP. The Zeus of Lustful 5 had around 600,000 plus health as a ruler class enemy, which takes half damage, which means you can comfortably double it to 1,200,000 health across multiple health bars. And Kerdonos, which was the judge sent from Avalon to sentence the fairies of LB6, had around 1.2 million health as well, spread across multiple phases. ORT though is a different breed entirely. At level 1, which is the level it is when we fight it, it has 1 million health. Not spread across, but 11 phases, which totals to 11 million HP. To defeat such an alien, Chaldea had to basically summon the entire Throne of Heroes to combat it. And while the Chaldeans had enough magical energy to defeat ORT, what they didn't have was time and resources. If ORT got to the 5th stratum, it would swallow Nahui Mictlan's son and regain its original heart. After that, no matter what, Chaldea would lose. And each time a servant got defeated by ORT, it would get absorbed into ORT's database. Thankfully, it wasn't strong enough to digest the servants. At least not yet, maybe proper human history ORT could. But it could store them as information, making it so that Chaldea couldn't summon a servant that got devoured by it, not until they killed ORT. Which meant that if Ritzka specifically commanded his servants wrong and got too many of them eaten, that would be the end of the fight. Still, at this point, Chaldea was pretty overpowered. Ritzka was the greatest master of humanity. Despite all, they could summon a lot of terrifying servants, and in the 6th stratum they had a powered up goddess Ereshkigal, called Ninkigol here, helping them take down ORT. Only in the 6th stratum though, she was bound there, and the Ninkagol that was powered immensely by LB7 was strong enough to combat Safar, which is the entity that ends the Age of Gods in Nasuverse, making it so that the gods' influence over Earth becomes weaker. And with her help, after around 9 hours of constant fighting, they managed to kill ORT, for real this time, and after its spider body vanishes, the Chaldeans realize that's not ORT's actual body. And so, with no choice left, they flee to the 5th stratum, leaving Ninkagol to get devoured by ORT. The spider-like body that we know ORT for is merely waste. It's not a real body. Its real body is a UFO saucer on top of it. Even so, calling it waste is not honest either. If the spider-like body can be compared to a human body, the UFO is simply just another level of body that us humans just don't have. And even then, ORT is not hostile. Not even when Chaldea kills its waste body. Only its 2 noble phantasms, along with one of its skills, are meant to be actual actions ORT takes to stop you. Those 2 being Cosmic Ray-Burst and Lost Supernova. As for this skill, Analyze, Decode, Disable, it basically just analyzes a servant structure, decodes it, then just disables it, making that servant completely helpless against ORT's existence, at least when it comes to that unclear lack of hostility with the spider body. While it did reboot way back in the 9th stratum, it didn't do so perfectly, so its spider body was more like a bunch of living limbs stitched together that spasmed uncontrollably as it approached the 5th stratum. It wasn't fully unified. With the UFO though, it became stronger. For one, now the cosmic rays were even more deadly, capable of not just weakening servants greatly, but outright killing them. For another, it gets another 11 million HP spread across 7 health bars. That brings the total to 22 million health, still at level 1. And throughout the entire fight, its primary goal isn't to kill the Chaldeans. It mostly tries to ignore them. Its goal is reaching the Son of Mictlan. Thankfully, before it got to it, a Deinos managed to take the Son of Mictlan all the way to the 3rd stratum, which increased the distance ORT needed to travel. And that bought the Chaldeans more time to fight ORT. And as the fight keeps on going, you can see Ritska get more and more stressed. This doesn't happen in any other part of the game. It does, but you just don't see it the way you do here. By the 4th stratum, they could have killed at least 5 Goetias or 5 Kernioses or whatever, but instead they were fighting a level 1 ORT, and that was more dangerous than any other fight ever was. Speaking of, the 4th stratum is where most of the damage is done to UFO ORT. With the help of 2 other entities about as strong as Ninkagol, they managed to weaken ORT greatly. Benny Enma is one of the death-related servants of the game, and death-related servants are always unmatched. And here she was much stronger. And with her, there was King Protea, who is normally the amalgamation of multiple goddesses' divinities. And again, she is much stronger in Mictlan due to various circumstances. King Protea held ORT down temporarily, and Benyenma applied the concept of death to it, which came in handy later. Of course, they both died as well. By the time ORT reached 3rd stratum, it had 5 million health, 2 bars remaining. 2 million of that HP is taken down by remaining Deinos, and one particular Deino is capable of utilizing death, leaving ORT with only 3 million HP. It was the final stretch, and right near the Son of Mictlan as well. By this point, only a handful of Deinos were left alive, alongside Kukulkan, which was the only god of Mictlan. The Oslome, 99.9% of Deinos and the many enemy servants Chaldea was facing originally were dead. Even the wildlife was pretty much entirely crystallized. The impact of the 5th extinction event, rivaling the meteor that wiped out the dinosaurs in proper human history, was irreversible. And even then, Chaldea couldn't wipe out the last 3 million health before it was too late. They only needed a few more seconds. But it clearly wasn't possible. Not without the help of the foreign god. The foreign god could be called the main antagonist of Part 2 of FGO. From the 1st to the 6th Lost Bolt, she was the entity Chaldea was trying to take down. It's all more complicated, but I don't need to go into detail here. Just know that in the 7th Lost Bolt, she originally wanted to assimilate ORT into herself, but things changed after a lot of developments. She was strong enough that in Lost Bolt 6, Avalon Lafay, the longest Lost Bolt, one of the primary objectives was to forge a weapon strong enough to destroy the foreign god, and that weapon was a modified Excalibur called the Hume Barrel Rayproof. Basically, it's a weapon that gets stronger the more threatening something is to humanity. So, in theory, it should have killed ORT in one shot, given how threatening it is. While ORT is unkillable, if all parts of its body are destroyed at once, it can't regenerate. In theory, at least. The reason why they couldn't use it until now was because the Stormboarder, the flying vehicle Chaldea uses, was stationed in the 3rd stratum. It was their ace in the hole, and once they shot it, its beam bended around ORT. Another thing is that ORT, as a UFO, creates a storm of radiation around itself. That storm is another thing that keeps ORT immortal. Benny Enma and King Protea managed to take down that storm, but by the time ORT reached the 3rd stratum, it regenerated the organ that makes that storm, and even strengthened it. Basically, the storm had its own unnatural gravitational pull, which meant that if they calculated the properties of its storm well enough, they could land a direct shot. Only problem was that they needed 2 minutes. 2 minutes that they didn't have. 2 minutes that was bought through the help of the foreign god. With her Tachyon jail, the Stormboarder could function at faster than light for a few minutes. In those few minutes, they managed to damage ORT greatly, and because of the Tachyon jail, it couldn't regenerate fast enough. And once the Rayproof barrel fired its shot, finally ORT died once and for all. It could not come back from that. Because David was in possession of the foreign god's heart, the foreign god died along with ORT. She wasn't strong enough to keep the Tachyon jail running for so long without consequence. At the very least, after another unspecified hours of fighting, ORT should have died. Let me reiterate. The one radiant thing is humanity's greatest desire itself. The desire to be more, in all the ways that something can be more. The pride we have for our determination and heart is not something that ORT has. Not the pride, but the determination. It has it to an even more disgusting degree, in an inhumane way. If it can learn, it will. If it can't learn, it will learn why. And if it learns why, it will learn how to know the unknowable. Throughout the fight with Ritska, it managed to absorb a lot of heroic spirits, proofs of humanity's history. And so, in the end, it simulated a history in which it itself could be summoned as a servant. 140 million years of history passed through its mind, and by copying the code of the Throne of Heroes it managed to get a hold of, it created its own Throne of Heroes, after which it summoned itself as a Grand Foreigner. Grands are typically the pinnacle of servants that exist as the main protectors of humanity, and this Grand ORT was the main protector of its own simulated history. It is at this moment that not MASH, not Da Vinci, not Gorgo, not Sion, not Munier, not Nemo, not Kadok, and not even the absent Sherlock Holmes said this next line. We fought a lot of different threats so far, but that thing's the only true monster we've seen. The one who says this is Ritska, the one who has been in the front lines of all the battles of Chaldea. Not Tiamat, not Goetia, not Zeus, not Kernos, not even Vortigern, not even the foreign god which they confronted in fight twice up to that point. None of those entities were monsters. None. Only the one radiant thing was a true monster. This servant ORT is not as strong as the actual one, it's much weaker. But also, unlike the ORT variants that Chaldea fought thus far, it actually sees Chaldea as a threat and decides to kill them once and for all. Having devoured so many different parts of humanity by this point, and even having made its own history, it could perfectly mimic a human. But it will never truly understand humans either. It's like saying a word perfectly in a language you don't understand. In the end, Kukulkan is the one who has to step in and help Chaldea as the only possible ally left. She didn't want to interfere as a god, but wanted to do so as a person, and after making up her mind, she helps you fight ORT Xibalba. In the fight itself, it even points at you, but again, this is not something it does out of respect or grudge, it's mimicry. The question of how much you can mimic before it becomes reality is not a question I'm going to go over. I personally don't think it thinks the way that you would think, but maybe it does at this point, who knows. Throughout the fight, it announces the many different eras of Mictlan, having assimilated pretty much all of it. From the first 3 extinction events, to the paradise of Deinos, to the lost history of Khan, and the stumped future of the Osalome, and in its last health bar, it calls out Chaldea. Again, not out of grudge or respect, but as a fact, a statement. It sees Chaldea as the one true future of this still living world, not philosophically, but logically. Still, after killing ORT Xibalba with the help of Kukulkan, the Chaldeans are finally free. If there's a path forward, ORT will continue. If there isn't, it'll find a loophole. And if there isn't a loophole, it'll just create one. As long as options exist, any kind of options, ORT will not stop. It's a monster. It's not an existence meant to be taken down. Other than, of course, by itself. After it revived itself yet again, Ritska lost all hope. But Kukulkan could finish the job. Kukulkan was a manifestation of Mictlan's son. Mictlan's son wasn't just ORT's heart, it was also blessed and worked on by the Mala. And with David's arrival into the Lost Belt, that manifestation got influenced by proper human history, becoming like the Kukulkan of Mayan mythology. Either way, she was also ORT's heart, and it is only after she destroys Mictlan's son herself, along with ORT, that not just she and ORT get destroyed, but also the entirety of Mictlan begins to vanish, the fantasy tree having finally been chopped. This time, for real this time, the heartless, infantile, level 1 ORT was dead for good. There are 3 main things that make ORT so great. For one, unless you count its skill names in the ORT Xibalba fight, it does not talk, it doesn't speak, it has no dialogue. It's just a monster, almost not even a character. It's just a disaster that has to be dealt with. When you look at Goetia, Krishtaria, and Oberon, they all talk, quite a bit, and it's their ideologies that compel people. ORT has no such thing. It's not an antagonist you are meant to think about, it's an antagonist you are meant to fear and be in awe of. The kind a series can't have too many of. As for the second thing that makes ORT so great, it's a monster made from humanity's pride. What I mean by that is that ORT, as a creature, is humanity's desire to reach the stars and beyond manifested as a monster. In its unknowability, there's a familiar heat, the warmth that us humans have had since we discovered fire. And just like that fire, heat, and warmth, ORT burns. The desire to be more, the human heart demands to be admired. ORT is a creature made to be admired. ORT takes what humanity is proud of and makes it into something to be feared, makes an almost divine thought into a demon. And what makes it all even more fascinating is that we see this ORT in a Lost World. Lost Worlds are dead ends of history. ORT contrasts that. ORT is not a dead end. It never will be. And lastly, the other thing that makes ORT so great is that it's the Lost World one. A weaker version of the actual ORT that exists in the proper human history of Nasuverse. The way Nasu puts it, ORT is meant to be the secret super boss that a player fights after the final one. That is the role it's supposed to have in the world of Nasuverse. And even though it gets defeated in Nahui Mictlan, we all know that a much stronger, much more real ORT awaits in the jungles of South America, waiting for the promised day, so that it can ambush and devour the other ultimate ones of the solar system before leaving it once and for all. Just like how we saw a vision of the Lost World ORT in Mexico City, Lost World ORT is merely a vision of the real ORT. If you wanted to know, ORT Xibalba has 1.6 million HP, more than even Goetia, and Goetia only had 1 health bar, while ORT's health is spread across 7 bars. The monster. Aside from that, like, subscribe, hit bell, dislike, do as you wish, just give me engagements. Consider becoming a member, it helps a ton. Aside from that, I have nothing else to say. This has been a fun video to make, so before anything happens, I should end it right